finally cracked the code, you're ready to crush it, and you do.
For about 4 days.
Right. Maybe 9 if you're really gritty.
Yeah.
But then, inevitably, reality sets in. A crisis at work, a bad night's sleep, an unexpected bill. That surge vanishes.
You miss a single day.
The guilt creeps in. And suddenly you aren't crushing it anymore. You're just tired.
Mm.
And you slide right back to baseline.
And that slide back is usually accompanied by a pretty brutal internal monologue, too.
Oh, absolutely. We tell ourselves, I just didn't want it enough, or I'm lazy. We basically diagnose ourselves with a character flaw. We think we have a willpower deficiency.
Which is the real tragedy of it. Because usually the people who try the hardest are the ones burning out the fastest.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to get into today's deep dive. We're looking at a source called Identity Lift and the Architecture of Universal Law. And honestly, when I first saw the title, I thought, okay, universal law. Are we getting into crystals and star charts here?
It does sound a bit esoteric at first glance.
It does. But as I read it, I realized this isn't a hype document. It reads much more like a structural engineering manual, but for a human being.
That is the perfect way to frame it. The core thesis here is incredibly distinct. It argues that the reason we fail to change isn't because we lack discipline or effort. It's because we're attempting to build a skyscraper on a foundation designed for a cottage. The source argues that personal transformation isn't a battle of will, it's an alignment with structure, with these quote-unquote laws.
Meaning, just like there's gravity for buildings, there are laws governing psychology and human consciousness.
Exactly. If you build a house that ignores gravity, it literally doesn't matter how motivated the architect was or how expensive the materials were.
The house collapses.
The house collapses because it violates the structural laws of physics. This source argues that human identity works the exact same way. If you try to force a change that violates these universal laws, you will collapse.
And that collapse is what we normally just call burnout.
Precisely. But the flip side, and this is the hopeful part, is if you understand the architecture, if you align with these laws, change stops being a struggle. It becomes, as the text puts it, inevitable.
Inevitable is a really bold word. So let's test that claim. The document outlines 7 specific laws.
Yeah.
I want to walk through these because they dismantle a lot of the standard self-help advice we've all been fed.
They really do. Let's get into it.
Let's start with law number 1, the law of mentalism.
So this is the bedrock. The law of mentalism states that the all is mind. Now, before we get too abstract, what this practically means is that we never actually experience reality directly.
We only experience our interpretation of reality.
Exactly. The event itself and your experience of the event are 2 totally different things.
Okay, so this is the lens concept, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I get fired or if I break my leg, that is an objective fact. It's not just all in my head.
The event is objective, yes. A broken leg is a broken leg. But the experience of the event is entirely subjective. The source uses a really great comparison here. Imagine 2 people lose their jobs on the exact same day.
Okay.
Person A has an identity structure rooted in scarcity and fear. Their lens says, this is a disaster, I am unsafe. So their biological response is cortisol, panic, and contraction.
Right, they go straight into survival mode.
Exactly. Now, person B has an identity rooted in what the source calls sovereignty. Their lens says, this is a pivot point, I was outgrowing that role anyway.
The event is identical. Employment terminated.
Yes, but person B's biological response is dopamine, curiosity, and expansion.
So the quote-unquote reality they live in for the next 6 months is completely different.
Completely different. One lives in a tragedy, and the other lives in an adventure. The source argues that you cannot change your life if you don't first change the lens processing the data. If you keep the victim lens, even winning the lottery will eventually be processed as a source of anxiety.
Which is terrifying, actually. It means we're trapped in our own interpretation unless we actively break it.
That's the real work. The identity lift isn't about getting better things, it's about getting a better lens.
And this bleeds right into the second law, which I honestly found to be the most confronting part of the entire document. Law number 2, the law of correspondence. As within, so without.
This is the mirror principle, and it is a tough one to swallow.
It really is. The source says your external world, so your bank account, your relationships, your physical health, is a direct reflection, a mirror of your internal structure.
Right. It argues that income tends to settle at the level of your self-worth. Relationships mirror your self-concept.
I have to pause you there, because that's a really heavy claim. If someone gets laid off because of a global recession, or gets sick, or finds themselves in a toxic relationship, Is the source really saying that's a reflection of their internal coherence? That sounds a little bit like victim blaming.
It is a controversial point,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's vital to nuance what the source is actually saying here. It is not saying you manifested a global recession. It's not magic.
Okay.
It's saying that your position within that reality, how you navigate it, what you tolerate, and where you ultimately end up corresponds to your internal stability.
So it's not that I caused the storm, but the fact that my boat is sinking while other people are sailing might be about the structure of my boat.
That's a really fair analogy. The source focuses heavily on this idea of friction. If you try to fix your life by only rearranging the external pieces, forcing a new job, forcing a partner to change, without changing your internal set point, you create friction.
The text used that image of standing in front of a mirror and trying to comb your reflection's hair.
Right. You can scratch at the glass all day long, but the reflection won't change until you change. The law of correspondence basically says, stop scratching the mirror. Work on the internal calibration, your beliefs, your nervous system regulation, and the external picture will reorganize to match it.
It's basically saying we do things backward. We try to change the world so we can feel better inside. The source says, feel different inside, and the world changes.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move to the mechanics of how we interact with others. This brings us to laws 3 and 4, which I'm calling the physics of presence.
This is where it gets very tactical.
Law number 3, the law of vibration. Now, I'll be honest, when I hear the word vibration, I usually tune out. It sounds like something you hear at a retreat in Sedona while holding a quartz crystal.
Yeah, it has that reputation.
But the source frames this biologically.
It does. It moves completely away from the idea of good vibes and talks about frequency as a communicative signal. Think about it this way. We are social mammals. We are hardwired to detect threats and safety in other people, often before they even speak a word.
Is this the mirror neuron concept?
Precisely. Let's say you walk into a boardroom to pitch a huge deal. Internally, you are screaming with insecurity. Your heart rate variability is erratic.
Even if I'm smiling.
Even if you're smiling and you have the perfect script,
Yeah.
your microexpressions and your autonomic nervous system are broadcasting threat or instability.
And the people across the table pick up on that. They don't necessarily think, oh, he's nervous. They just feel that something is off.
They feel distrust. That underlying broadcast is the vibration. The source argues that a survival-based identity radiates a frequency of neediness and tension. People naturally repel from that. It's why desperation is the absolute worst cologne.
So an embodied identity, someone who is actually secure, radiates coherence.
And that coherence is magnetic. When the source talks about raising your vibration, it's not about forcing yourself to think happy thoughts. It's about regulating your nervous system so that you are broadcasting a consistent signal of safety and authority.
And that's when the, quote, law works for you.
Oh,
Opportunities stick because your signal matches the opportunity,
you've got it.
which connects perfectly to law number 4, the law of cause and effect.
Mhm.
This was the section that made me realize why my New Year's resolutions usually fail by February.
The upstream versus downstream argument.
Right. We tend to think that if we just get better habits or if we just have more discipline, we'll become a new person. We chase the habits.
But the source flips the causality entirely. It lists habits, discipline, and motivation as effects. They are the downstream results. Identity is the cause.
So trying to force yourself to have discipline is like trying to force a river to flow uphill.
Exactly. Think about someone trying to quit smoking. If your internal identity is, I am a smoker who is trying to quit, every single time you deny yourself a cigarette, it requires massive willpower. You are fighting your own identity.
There's immense friction.
Huge friction. But if your identity shifts to, I am an athlete, you don't have to use willpower to not smoke. Athletes just don't smoke. It's a non-issue.
The decision is already made upstream.
Yes. The entire identity lift framework is about moving upstream and changing the cause. When you shift the identity, the habits, the effects reorganize automatically. The source has this great line, discipline stops feeling like suppression and becomes identity expression.
I love that phrase, identity expression. It means you go to the gym not because you hate yourself and need to burn calories, but because that's just what people like you do.
It becomes natural, and that's the ultimate goal. Not force, but flow.
Okay, but this is where my skepticism kicks back in. Because shifting identity sounds amazing on paper, but we have brains that are literally wired for efficiency. We have years of baggage. How do we actually do this? You can't just snap your fingers and say, I'm a new person.
No, you can't, and the source fully acknowledges that. This is where we get into the neurology of change. Laws 5 and 6.
Law number 5 is the law of rhythm.
Willpower fails because rhythm wins.
The source talks about a 21-day identity reset. Now, we've all heard that 21 days to form a habit thing, and I usually roll my eyes at it. Is there actual science here, or is it just a catchy marketing number?
There is legitimate biology behind this. The source isn't saying you're completely fully cooked and transformed in 21 days, but it frames it as a rhythmic interruption. Think of your old identity, your old habits, your old emotional reactions as a 6-lane highway in your brain.
It's paved, it's fast, it's super efficient.
It is the path of least resistance. Now, the new identity you want. That's a dirt path through a dense jungle with a guy holding a machete. It's hard. It's slow. Your brain absolutely hates it. The brain wants to use the highway.
So the 21 days is about paving the dirt path.
It's about myelination. Every single time you repeat a thought or an action, you wrap that specific neural pathway in myelin, which acts like insulation on a wire. It makes the electrical signal travel faster.
Wow, okay.
The law of rhythm is about relentless repetition for a set period of time to thicken that new pathway. You are physically building the new highway so that eventually the traffic, your thoughts and behaviors flows that way automatically.
So it's not magic. It's literally construction work. You are laying asphalt in your brain.
It is pure construction. And you have to respect the rhythm of it. If you do it for 3 days and then stop, the weeds just grow back over the dirt path. You need the momentum to break the old loop.
But what about the stuff that blocks the construction? The old trauma, the shame, the deep-seated fear. I feel like we can't just positive think our way over that kind of debris.
You can't. And that brings us to law number 6, the law of perpetual transmutation. This is actually my favorite part of the source because it deals with energy physics.
The idea that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed.
Right. A lot of people try to destroy their negative emotions. They try to suppress the shame or hide the anger. The source calls this blocking the flow. Imagine a massive, raging river rushing down a mountain. That river is your trauma or your anger.
It's incredibly powerful stuff.
Most people build a dam to hold it back, and that takes immense, constant effort. You're spending half your daily energy just holding back the water. Transmutation is different. Transmutation is building a hydroelectric turbine.
Oh, I really like that visual.
You don't try to stop the water. You let it flow through the mechanism, and the sheer weight and force of that pain spins the turbine to generate power.
So as the text says, what once limited you becomes fuel.
Exactly. It's not spiritual bypassing where you just pretend everything is fine and perfectly healed. It's looking at that chip on your shoulder, that deep fear of poverty and saying, okay, this is high-octane fuel. You metabolize the emotion and turn it into drive, into empathy, into hyper-focus.
You're an alchemist. You're turning lead into gold.
Or, to stick to the engineering theme, you're retrofitting your system to run on a completely different fuel source.
Okay, so let's recap where we are. We've got the lens, which is mentalism. The mirror, correspondence, the signal, vibration, the upstream cause and effect, the highway construction, rhythm, and the hydroelectric dam, transmutation. All of this leads to the final law, the operating system itself.
Law number 7, the law of identity.
The I am principle.
The source calls this the absolute most fundamental law of human psychology. Everything in your life organizes around what follows those 2 words, I am.
Because I am is essentially a command to the brain.
It is the ultimate filter. If your fundamental setting is I am unworthy, your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters sensory data, will literally delete evidence of your worthiness.
It just blocks it out completely.
Yes, you won't even see the opportunities. You will only see confirmation of your unworthiness.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy machine.
Correct. But here is the catch, and the source is very specific about this part. This isn't about standing in front of your bathroom mirror and chanting, I am a billionaire, when you have $5 in your checking account. Your brain knows you're lying.
Right, that just creates cognitive dissonance.
Massive dissonance. Instead, the source calls for experiential recalibration.
Unpack that for us. How do I experientially recalibrate to something I haven't actually achieved yet?
You have to rehearse the emotional signature of the new identity. The brain doesn't actually know the difference between a high-definition visualization and reality. Really. If you close your eyes and vividly experience the feeling of security, of authority, of deep gratitude, if you let that chemistry literally wash over your nervous system, you are teaching your body, what that new identity feels like.
You're giving the body a preview of the future.
You're laying the tracks. You practice the feeling until it becomes familiar. And once the feeling is familiar, the actions that match it start to feel natural. If you wait for the external world to change before you feel successful, you will wait forever. You have to install the software first.
That really ties everything together. We started this conversation talking about why trying hard always seems to fail. And the answer seems to be strategy without identity is just noise.
That is the perfect summary. You can have the best business plan in the world, the best diet, the best workout routine. But if your internal architecture, your fundamental I am, contradicts it, you will sabotage yourself. You are fighting your own gravity.
So the identity lift is really just about alignment.
It's about ceasing the war with yourself. When you align your lens, your frequency, and your habits with the person you genuinely intend to be, the resistance just drops away.
And that's when the results become inevitable.
Inevitable. Not because of magic, but because you've built a structural architecture that can only result in that specific outcome.
You know, for a deep dive, this was less about diving into abstract information and more about diving into, well, us, the listeners.
Which is really the only place real change actually happens.
Very true. I want to leave everyone with a challenge that the source hints at towards the end. A bit of a provocation for you to take with you.
Let's hear it.
If the law of correspondence is true, if your external world is a brutal, completely honest mirror of your internal structure, don't look away from it. Look at your desk right now. Look at your calendar. Look at the last 5 texts you sent.
Don't judge them, just read them.
Exactly. Just observe them and ask yourself, what I am statement built this reality? If you don't like the answer you find, that's okay. You're the architect. You can tear it down and build something new.
The blueprints are in your hands.
Thanks for building with us today. Think about what your environment is telling you, and we'll see you on the next dive.